Hey guys, Gasket GT Garage here. So I took the Escort to work and then later took it and filled it up with gas. Came home and smelled the gas, so I looked under the car and sure enough, it was leaking gas pretty bad. Luckily, I knew what it was that was causing the gas leak. So today I'm going to show you how to replace the O-ring gasket on the lock ring of the sending unit underneath the seat. So let's get started. Go ahead and start by opening up the door and then pulling the lever on the seat to swing it forward so you can access the back seat. Then on top of the carpet, just below the seat, is a button that you'll push to release the pin to allow the back seat to come up. So you can remove the back seat, and that's where that button is at. Now that the driver's side's unlocked, go ahead and do the same thing on the passenger side. Then once both are released, the seat should remove up, and then you can kind of pull it forward and push in the seat belt buckles through the seat. And then also there's that seat belt for the middle seat to push in as well. Now that the seat belts are removed from the rear seat and the seat belt buckles are removed, you can go ahead and pull it out of the car and get it set aside out of the way, just like I did here. Then we're going to climb into the back of the car now and access the sending unit. It's really nice having the sending unit just right below the driver's seat. That way we don't have to worry about dropping the tank from underneath the car. And depending on your vehicle, you may have to drop the tank or it could be under the seat as well. Every car is different. But now we got to unplug the harness and the two grounds on that one screw, and then obviously unscrew all four of those Phillips screws. While I unscrew these four Phillips screws, let me start by saying the first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect your battery so that way you don't blow a fuse or short anything out. My battery is currently dead, so I never bothered to disconnect it. Now that all four screws are out, go ahead and get yourself a flathead and just kind of like pry up on the tray so that way you can access the sending unit. And then you're going to want to push the rubber grommet through the hole of the sending unit tray. Then you can pull out the ground wire and the harness out of the tray and set it aside. Now there's the sending unit. You have that lock ring right there, and underneath that lock ring and the sending unit itself is a little gasket, and that gasket can go bad, which mine did, and it can start leaking gas everywhere, just like mine was doing. And this is not the first time I've had this problem. I had this problem with my first black Escort GT that I had back in high school. So what you're going to want to do is, before you disconnect anything, is you're going to want to vacuum up all that debris and everything on top of the gas tank so that way nothing falls into the gas tank, into the gas. Then go ahead and remove the clips holding the fuel line onto the fuel rail. And if you do not have extra clips like I do, make sure you do not break them. Don't just pull them away. Be nice and gentle. You have this little prong on the end. You can turn the fuel lines around so that way you can pinch those together and safely pull them out without breaking them. And there's the second one. So go ahead and set those off to the side. And as you can see here, I kind of pried a little bit too hard and cracked one of them. Luckily, it is still very safe to use, so I'm just going to reuse them. Then go ahead and get a chisel or a pry bar. And on the lock ring, it has two ears that stick up around, and you just tap those counterclockwise to knock it loose. And then when we put the new one back on, we're going to turn it clockwise to tighten it into place. Now, be very careful when you're doing this, because if you spill any kind of gas or anything like that, and you're hitting metal on metal, like the hammer and my chisel, like I'm doing, you got to be very careful, because if it sparks, I guarantee you that's not the kind of fire that you're going to want. Then here's a better look at those ears sticking up for you to loosen and tighten the lock ring. I really should have done this before I loosened up quite a few things. And also, I'd recommend if you did this with very little gas left. I basically had a full tank of gas, so that's why mine's looks wet, because it is wet. It's wet with gas.
I'm not a smart man.
Now you can go ahead and pull out the fuel lines. Not very difficult to get loose. Just go ahead and pull them out. And now you can loosen the lock ring, but since I already did that, we're going to go ahead and remove it. And let me show you real quick where the ear is at. So the ear is just right there, and you just want to tap it counterclockwise to loosen it and to tighten it clockwise. So let's go ahead and remove the lock ring so we can pull the sending unit up so we can pull out the bad O-ring. And there's the lock ring. Mine is still decently good. It could still probably be used again, but since I have a new one, I'm just going to use the brand new one. And then here's the bad O-ring gasket. It had some tears in it. And here is the new O-ring and lock ring from Napa Auto Parts. I think it was 20 or 30 bucks. Now let me show you where the gasket is going to be. So just behind this lip is a little groove right here that the gasket's going to seat in. Make sure it's fully seated before you put the sending unit back in, but it goes in this groove right here. So now let's go ahead and tighten up the new lock ring with the new O-ring gasket. And here is how it should look. I did verify this sending unit and fuel pump is original. It still has the Ford on it everywhere. So still working strong 31 years later. Now you see that little O-ring lip on the fuel line from the sending unit? That is what the clips go behind, so that way the fuel line doesn't come off, because all of the fuel pressure, you don't want to not put the clips on and then have the fuel lines blow off and leak gas everywhere. So go ahead and just slide the fuel lines back on. Then go ahead and grab the clips here and put them back on. When you put them on, go ahead and pull the fuel line up against the sending unit to make sure it's tight and past that lip. So when you put the clips back on, you put it behind the lip, so that way there is no way of it coming back off. And if it's not really going on very well, go ahead and grab a flathead screwdriver and just kind of guide it back into the other inserts on the other side, so that way it completely locks into place. Now with both clips back on, go ahead and make sure that they're on there tight, and then go ahead and grab the sending unit tray or cover and go ahead and pull that grommet out. There's a little lip inside that I showed you earlier in the video. Make sure that lip is inside, so that way the harness is held in place. Once the grommet is fully seated with the harness, it should look exactly like that. Now we can go ahead and set it back down, and then we can put the screws back in place. Now remember, you have that ground wire coming off the car harness and the sending unit harness. So go ahead and grab both of those grounds and put the screw in both of the grounds, and then you can screw it through the cover. And go ahead and make sure the cover is set in place, so that way you can screw it back down to the car. Then make sure the cover and everything is nice and tight. Giggity. And then you can go ahead and plug in the harness. And when you plug it in, make sure you hear a click indicating that it is in there and locked. Then let's go ahead and go outside the car and put the rear seat back in. When you put the rear seat back in, don't forget to put the seatbelt back in for the third seat, and then make sure you get all of the seatbelt buckles in place too. Once you got all of the seatbelt buckles and that middle seat belt through, go ahead and pull all of them, make sure they're all the way out, and then you can push down on the seat to lock it back in place. And then you are done. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like, and we'll see you guys next time for more Mustang and Escort GT content.